Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics. First, the highlights. Global rights group Amnesty International knocks Nigerian military over accidental bombing. More reactions trail accidental bombing of Tundumbiri in Igabi local government area as group of protesters express sadness over insecurity in the north. Plus, coalition of ethnic youth leaders in Plateau State demand ministerial slot for zone. Welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. We begin with the global rights group Amnesty International, which has knocked the Nigerian military over the accidental bombing that killed over 85 villagers and injured several others at Tundumbiri village in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State on Sunday. The rights group described as unacceptable the persistent, unlawful killings of civilians by military airstrikes. Amnesty accused the Nigerian military of cover-up and demands that justice be served on the matter. The statement reads in part, the Nigerian military has since put out two contradictory explanations. An initial statement by the Nigerian army in Kaduna said the airstrike was a mistake. This was followed by a statement from Nigeria's defense headquarters claiming that suspected bandits had embedded the civilians. The victims were buried in two mass graves on the 4th of December 2023. It also said the Nigerian military's recklessness is a result of the authorities' consistent failure to hold them to account for a long list of such atrocities. These unlawful killings of civilians, it said, cannot be swept under the carpet. The director of Amnesty International Nigeria, Issa Sanusi, said that the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration must promptly set up an independent inquiry into the Tundumbiri village airstrike and ensure that those suspected to be responsible are brought to justice in fair trials. Meanwhile, the United Nations has urged the military to review its rules of engagement to avoid the recurrence of an airstrike on a community in Kaduna State that claimed several lives. The United Nations Humanitarian Office on Wednesday condemned the incident, adding that it was the most recent of at least 4 bombings that resulted in severe civilian casualties since 2017. UN Human Rights Office spokesperson Saif Magango also urged the military to review its rules of engagement. He says, while we note that the authorities have termed the civilian deaths as accidental, we call on them to take all feasible steps in the future to ensure civilians and civilian infrastructure are protected. He says they must review rules of engagement and standard operating procedures to ensure that such incidents do not happen again. Well, we had to more reactions, and this is with regards to the mood to the accidental airstrikes in Tundumbiri village by the Nigerian army in Kaduna. And this is coming from the chairman of the Senate Committee on Army, Senator Abdulaziz Yaradua, who's described the airstrike as an honest mistake and does not warrant the resignation of the Chief of Army Staff. He commended the Chief of Army Staff for his admittance to the error, urging that peace be given a chance. The federal lawmaker was reacting to calls by the Northern Elders Forum for the resignation of the military top brass over the incident.
Those calling for his resignation should understand this is not, they shouldn't even talk about it. It's not about resignation. This is a man who has so much integrity and a practical officer whom has been commended even before becoming the Chief of Army Staff. So the talk about him resigning should not even arise. I think the Chief of Army Staff needs to be commended for what he did, for accepting responsibility. You know, mistakes in war happens like this. This is not the first time. You know, even outside there, you see America, United States, Europe, when they go to war, such mistakes happen, such collateral damage happen. So you wouldn't know, especially when you see a group of people, these people move under the cover of darkness in groups. So if you see such a large group, based on the intelligence they got, you know, they thought they were the ones. So I want to advise the government of Kaduna State and other state governments where such religious events take place, to direct such adherents and members of the Muslim community to inform the police of such gatherings, so that once the police are aware, such information will get to the army and other security agencies.
We were speaking to our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mizoke, there. And whilst lawmakers from the upper legislative chambers were calling for calm outside the premises of the National Assembly, a group of protesters yesterday stormed the National Assembly to express sadness over the accidental bombing of Tundumbiri in the Igabi local government area. Also, the group, comprising mostly young people, carried placards displaying their displeasure over the security situation in Niger, Zamfara and other parts of northern Nigeria. They're asking President Bola Tinubu to urgently address the situation to enable them return to their livelihoods. Let's take a look down memory lane to some of the airstrike mishaps that we've had in the recent past. And one that comes to mind is the deadliest that happened in 2017 on Rand village, which killed 115 civilians, including 6 Red Cross aid workers, reported to have been killed in the bombing. Also, the 18th of December 2022, airstrike by Nigerian Air Force killed 64 people in Mutumji village in Zamfara state. Also, on the 24th of January 2023, a military airstrike killed more than 40 herders in Doma region of Nasarawa state. And then, of course, January 2023, dozens of vigilantes were said to have been killed by a military airstrike in Galadima, Kogo. That's in Niger State, central Nigeria. Just to give you an idea of the number of airstrike mishaps that we've had in a recent time. But going back to the Kaduna bombing, the mishap there, the state government has distributed relief materials to victims of last Sunday's bomb attack at Tundumbiri village in the Igabi local government area. The relief materials, which was taken to the victims at the Barao Diko Teaching Hospital, is to provide temporary succor to the hospitalized survivors and those displaced due to the mishap. The Kaduna State Emergency Management Agency delivered the first batch of relief items, which include food items, non-food items, camping materials, as part of government's efforts to support the affected communities in this challenging time. Over 300 beneficiaries, including those affected and their families, are to benefit from the materials. And we'll move on to other stories now, where from Kaduna. The National Judicial Council, NJC, has recommended the appointment of 11 justices to the Supreme Court. A statement by its Director of Information, Sojioye, explains that the recommendation was made at the 104th meeting of the Council in Abuja yesterday. The recommended candidates will be sworn in after the approval of their recommendation by the President and the subsequent confirmation of their appointment by the Senate. With this appointment, the Apex Court will have the full complement of justices, 21, as envisaged by the Constitution. The NJC, at its last meeting for the year, also recommended the appointment of Justice Mohammed Ahmed Ramat to the Court of Appeal, as well as 6 heads of courts and 26 other judicial officers. And Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adeleke Agbola, joins us now from Abuja studios for more on this. Thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Melissa.
First, talk to us about the process involved. This is in appointing, the Supreme Court justices to reach their full complement.
Yes, the first thing you need to know is that Section 230 of the 1999 Constitution envisages that you have the Chief Justice of Nigeria and 21 associate justices. So it's not actually 21 we are talking about, 22. So the full complement will have been the CJN and 21 others. But going further, the process, of course, when there are vacancies in the system, as we have had in rapid succession in the last 2 years, is for vacancies to be declared. People will ask to apply. And in the last exercise, even the bar and academics were asked to submit application. But as usual, it's only the people who are already in the Court of Appeal that were effectively considered. So once you go through the process, the Federal Judicial Service Commission is the first line of weeding out the people who are to be recommended. And the normal thing is that if you have, in this instance, 11 justices were to be appointed, and the Federal Judicial Service Commission, headed by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, recommended they appoint 11 people with 11 reserved names. So effectively, 22 names were forwarded to the NJC by the Federal Judicial Service Commission for consideration. You have the preferred candidate and the reserved candidate. Not all the preferred candidates actually made the list as approved by the NJC. The NJC has now gone through the process, has interviewed the candidates for promotion to the Supreme Court. So that is the first level. The second level, and then now the name will go to the President of the Federal Republic, who is actually the appointing authority, because what the NJC does is to recommend people to be appointed. So the President has a prerogative to accept that recommendation or not. If he does, he will forward the names of the people so approved to the Senate for confirmation. So my discussion with some members of the Senate Committee on Judiciary is that they are anxious to receive the list, because there are a lot of work waiting for the Supreme Court. And the earlier the process is completed, the better. So I expect the President to give his nod or otherwise to the list before the end of this week. And by next week, it will go to the Senate, and all the indications, the whole process should be completed by next week, because as it is now, it is inhuman, the kind of work being piled upon the judges of all our system, including the Supreme Court. This morning we got the news of the sad loss of another judge of the Court of Appeal, Honorable Justice Ikeye. It is becoming too routine for people to drop dead in the course of performing their judicial function. So there must be a way to reduce the workload. But appointing them, it will be part of the way to, appointing more people to the Supreme Court will be part of the way to reduce the workload of existing justices.
Indeed. Before we come to the workload, what do you think, how did we get to this point? Because it did raise a lot of dust, in the media as to the number that needed to be filled. Also, their sort of geographical spread to represent, Nigeria's, ethnic nationalities.
Well, if you are talking of 21 or 22 members, as the case may be, and you have 6 geopolitical zones, so effectively, each geopolitical zone is expected to produce about 30 members to the Supreme Court, minimum of 30 members. And then, because if 30 members, 3 by 6, in fact, you cannot even have 30 members from each geopolitical zone, because that would take it beyond the constitutional limit of 22. So, but the issue is that it takes time for you to be able to appoint a Supreme Court justice. Unfortunately, in the past administration, under General Obasanjo, all the accommodation, official accommodation of the justices were sold. And so each time you have to bring in a new justice, you have to look for accommodation, you have to buy cars for the justices, you have to equip their chambers. So it's a lot of money. So to get it done, it takes a lot of planning. Don't forget that, because one of the reasons the justices rose up against the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Mohammed, was because they said their welfare was not being taken care of. You have instances where justices appointed had no working vehicle, had no accommodation. So that is what you have to be. You have to be sure that you have all the facilities in place before you can appoint. So that is part of the reason why you have the delay in filling vacancies. And of course, you have people also dropping dead. people that were supposed to retire in 2-3 years' time and just dying in the shadow as such. So I hope we will now be a little bit more forward-looking as to the numbers because retirement, you know the date of retirement of each justice of the Supreme Court. So the process should not wait until they retire before you want to fill the vacancy that will occur. So I hope we'll be more proactive in that we don't have this kind of lacuna that we've had in the last 2 years. The burden has been terrible on the working justices.
Perhaps do you think it's time to review the process, and that is the strict process of, having members of the Court of Appeal elevated to that of the Supreme Court? Do you think we would see a time when we would see those even out of maybe the justice system, being selected, and that is men of integrity, maybe some other criteria? And perhaps the second question to this is, do you think that, this process sort of, gives confidence to Nigerians about justice delivery?
Well, the truth is that there is no provision in the Constitution that says only serving judicial officers can be appointed to the Supreme Court. What the Constitution envisages is that you must have been a lawyer for at least 15 years. That is about the only requirement. The others are just peculiar Nigerian issues, because people look at appointment to the Supreme Court as a promotion. So you have people who have been doing the work. Some of them started as magistrates. They became judges of the High Court. It became just of the Court of Appeal. So they feel that how can somebody just come from outside who has never been in the judiciary and become a member of the Supreme Court? We have to change the system. And the system, there's nothing in the law that says you cannot appoint a serving lawyer, a lawyer or academic who has a degree. Because what is essential is that you must have been called to the Nigerian bar. That is the only requirement. Nobody says you must have. There's no requirement that says you must have served as a justice either in the Court of Appeal or in the High Court. But we all know in Nigeria it is so difficult. In fact, now it is becoming a joke that any time there is vacancy, invitation will be sent to the Nigerian Bar Association, and you recommend. They go through all the rigmarole of recommending, and in the end, when this comes out, you don't see a single one. It will take really some sea change, and the only way that can happen, because right now it is the existing members of the judiciary, they are the one who populate in NJC that made the recommendations. So unless you have a president who is proactive and says, why can't we bring in somebody, and say you must consider others from outside your normal promotion level, not just people who have been judiciary, then perhaps we can get something. But it must really, if a president do that, people will start accusing him of interfering in the judiciary. So it's really a very dicey proposition. But we just hope that the NJC will make itself amenable to look outside, look into the judiciary, look into academics, look into the practicing lawyers, advocates, and look into the academics, lawyers, to be able to inject new blood into the judiciary. And there's nothing, for example, there's nothing in law that says the CGN must be the most senior. There's nothing like that in the Constitution. But it has become the practice, so that everybody now speculates, oh, this man who has just been appointed is going to become CGN in 14 years' time.
And some might argue that it might be difficult because, for law, justice, jurists, there's a certain way they're used to doing a particular thing, and if they've done it for many years, which some would say is under precedence, then it's a bit difficult to do something new and to change, essentially. But the second arm of my question is, if you see all of this instilling some sort of overall confidence in Nigerians when it comes to adjudication and justice delivery. Well,
as a practitioner in the legal industry, I can assure you that there is still, overall, there's still confidence in the system. It's just that it is normal when somebody lost in court, he will complain that the law has not worked its way. But if you have another issue, we still come back to the same court. So that shows you that majority of our people believes in the educatory system. The judges are placed in a very difficult position because whatever they say or do, people are going to interpret it in a way that suits their own particular position. The truth is that when you bring a matter to the court, only one person can win. And that's why sometimes the court encourages mediation or arbitration to see whether things, you don't have to do it in an adversarial way. So the people, what I can tell, of course, things can be better. It can be better, people can do this thing. The justices, the most challenging issues we have now is the delay in delivering justice. It can be quite excruciating. Well, at the swearing at the new legal year service last week in Abuja here, we were in the Supreme Court when the story, one of the persons that was just made a senior advocate finished a case that was started when he was still in his baby in the mother's belly. So that means almost 30 years for a case to transit from High Court to Supreme Court. You can do better. And part of the way you can do better, really, is to limit the kind of cases that gets to the Supreme Court. Right now, our people Yoruba will say, all manner of cases. Tenancy matter, where the issues are villages, chieftaincy matters, all of them comes to the Supreme Court. So we must find a way to limit, so that it's only serious issues that will get to the Supreme Court. And the turnaround will be faster. We used to have instances where matters at Supreme Court last only 6 months. That right now, if you get a case in the Supreme Court hard within 15 years, we are extremely fortunate. All these political cases are also ramping up the system. We must find a way to remove all these political cases from the regular court system. Let the political parties battle their matters internally, so that it's only perhaps election matters that will come to the court.
Indeed. We would like to appreciate you, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adeleke Bola. Thank you for lending your voice to this very important issue.
Thank you, Millicent. Thank you for having me.
We'll move on to other stories. A coalition of youth leaders from various ethnic groups in the central zone of Plateau State, they're urging for a ministerial position in the federal cabinet following the confirmation of former Governor Simon Lalong as a senator. During a press briefing in Jos, the group alleged the ongoing marginalization of their zone, expressing dissatisfaction with the unequal representation compared to other zones in the state. This is in anticipation of the imminent resignation of former Governor Simon Lalong from his current role as Minister of Labour. As he transitions to the Senate, the coalition sees this as an opportunity for Plateau State to nominate a candidate for a ministerial position. The group emphasized the need for fair and inclusive representation.
Representing all the youth bodies in the zone, we call on His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, who is known as a listening father, to consider appointment of any of our sons or daughters as a minister to replace His Excellency Senator Simon Bako Lalong, former Governor of Plateau State, as he takes his seat in the Senate. It is on record that since the return of Nigeria to democracy from 1999 to date, only 2 zones among the 3 in Plateau States have enjoyed most of the ministerial slots allotted to the state, with only 1 from Plateau Central. The statistics so far indicated Plateau North Zone enjoying such appointment 5 times, while Plateau Southern Zone has its own beneficiary 6 times.
Elsewhere, a coalition of concerned political parties are calling on the federal government to review its policies and programs in order to ameliorate the sufferings of the Nigerian masses. Addressing a joint news conference in Abuja, spokesperson of the coalition of concerned political parties and national chairman of the Social Democratic Party, Mr. Shehu Gabam, claims that Nigerians are groaning as a result of some of the programs and policies of the federal government. The group, made up of representatives of the PDP, ADC, NNPP, YPP and SDP, are also asking judicial officers to be alive to their responsibilities by defending the nation's democracy through adjudications that are in line with the Constitution.
As you are aware, from every corner. Whatever happens, the heat comes to the political parties. They say parties are not responsible, parties are not organized, all sort of accusations here and there. Nobody cares to listen to the constraints, the difficulties, the challenges parties are facing to survive a very difficult situation. And frankly speaking, we were very honest in our discussions. It's not personal, it's about the nation, it's about Nigeria, it's about the decay that is going on. And we owe it a duty as patriotic citizens to draw the attention of the government to adjust some of the policies and the programs that have no human face. The policies must be converted to a human face policy so that the citizens can be relieved, they can have a space to breathe. The system is overchoked and we don't want any anarchy, we don't want any lawlessness in the country. And therefore we have identified about 7 points that we have had discussions on them, and these meetings will continue. We'll continue to develop, we'll continue to offer our advice to the government.
And let's take you back to scenes at the lower house, or House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters as they expressed displeasure over the failure of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, to honor the invitation of the committee for its budget defense. The chairman of the committee, Mr. Adebayo Balogun, says no communication was received from the commission explaining the absence of the INEC chairman. The committee has now rescheduled the engagement to a date that's yet to be communicated.
As the budget defense gets underway, that which was feared has already begun to happen. As in the past, the absence of heads of ministries, departments and agencies is observed. Members of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, after waiting for over an hour for the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, appear to have had enough.
It's rather unfortunate that the management of INEC is not yet here, and this is not a good way to start a new administration, not with the marching order given that by Mr. President that he wants the budget speedily treated, and they've not been able to communicate, and that's make it even worse.
May I please give my indulgence that from the chair, review this medium, give INEC a definite date on when they should appear. And a warning.
We don't want to give another date in public now, and now find out that that day won't be visible. So let's go deliberate and look for another visible date.
In the meantime, while some committees have commenced the budget defense, others hold inaugural meetings.
We will closely scrutinize the Nigerian Customs revenue collection and remittance processes to ensure that all custom duties and levies are promptly accounted for and remitted into the Federation accounts. We must strive to balance the need for revenue collection with the facilitation of legitimate trade, while also ensuring that our borders remain impenetrable to illicit goods and activities.
In addition to providing substantial support to the blue economy, a sector that significantly contributes to our national revenue. Hence, it is imperative that we exercise our legislative oversight over the Navy's general activities and operations.
The House had created over 20 new committees, which the Speaker believes would enhance the oversight function of the House. This number is expected to further boost the speed and thoroughness of the process leading to the passage of the budget. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And you've been served lunch. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. I'll see you next time.